Boom, 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 boom. Now tell me what you gonna do, but it ain't nowhere to run. When judgment comes for you, when judgment comes for you, tell me what you gonna do, when it ain't nowhere to hide. When judgment comes for you, 'cause it's gonna come for you.
Swinging it for water, easy, see something Charlie. Little boo guy's got him, and I'm gonna miss everybody out of row and flows like eggs. Looked at a wild flag and prayed for dust, and they play too deep for being sad. Little legs I came to be, told me your feature deceased, would it please marry me by my grand when you can't go follow
God bless you, working on a plan to heaven.
Backbone Wrestling Network. Welcome back to the CrosUp, your weekly look back at the week that was in professional wrestling. This week I'll be running through the results from Collision on January 4th to SmackDown on January 10th. We're going to start with Collision. We open with Daniel Garcia retaining his TNT Championship over Mark Briscoe via pinfall with a roll-up after reversing a cutthroat driver. They both shake hands after the match as a sign of respect, as they're both faces, obviously. We then get the Death Riders. They are unhappy with Jay White and Cope. John Moxley respects Cope, but Cope shouldn't go down this road of coming after him and the Death Riders. We then get Jeff Jarrett in his first match on his quest to become world champion, defeating jobber Aaron Solo via pinfall. He hits him with a pair of strokes. And then we get highlights of Ricochet savagely beating down Swerve from the previous Dynamite. We then get Private Party defending their tag team championship successfully against Leo Rush and Action Andretti. And Cassidy rolls up Andretti after some involvement from Top Flight. The Martin brothers had come out and had a bit of a distraction going on. So Private Party retains there. We then look at Darby Allin fighting against the Death Riders throughout the last couple of months and how it hasn't been going too well for him. We then get Cope talking he doesn't like John Moxley hiding the AEW World Title. And saying no one wants to be champion outside of, or like to the point where Moxley has to be champion because nobody else wants it. Cope says he wants to be champion and would wear the belt proudly. Chris Jericho then comes in, and Cope goes over their history together with Jericho saying he doesn't remember any of this. They're in a 6-man match tonight, and Cope leaves, and then Jericho says, "Cope is a dope. Sick burn." So just a real lame line there from Jericho, but obviously making fun of the fact that Cope is an awful, terrible name for a superstar. So, but I digress. But we'll move on from there. Toni Storm defeats Deonna Purrazzo via pinfall with a small package. So Deonna Purrazzo, despite the fact being repackaged into this group with Taya Valkyrie, has had zero success. So still trying to figure out what the heck they're doing with her in that situation. But again, I digress. Hangman Page and Christopher Daniels and get into a big argument backstage over Daniels not helping Hangman. That has Hangman asking Daniels, has he ever helped anyone, and what has he done in wrestling or for wrestling? Daniels then attacks him with a bunch of headbutts. He actually draws a little bit of blood, and Hangman is kind of beaten down and left laying after the confrontation that they had with each other. We then get the Acclaimed. They're arguing over their recent string of losses, and especially their loss last week on Dynamite. We then get Brian Cage defeating Commander, Dante Martin, and the Beast Mortos when he hits Weapon X on Dante Martin. We then randomly get the Rock and Roll Express. They're here with FTR, but the Outrunners come in, and the Express, and they tell the Express that they owe them gas money from Memphis in 1982, but only get an apology and a handshake instead. And then we get our main event where Rated FTR of FTR and Cope defeat the Learning Tree of Big Bill, Brian Keith, and Chris Jericho when the Shatter Machine and the Spear are both hit on Jericho in succession. And then post-match, Cope grabs the mic, thanks to fans, but the Death Riders pop up on the screen. They have apparently bound and gagged the Rock and Roll Express and have jumped the Outrunners in the backstage area, and are because they had tried to make the save, obviously. And then Rated FTR run back, and the Death Riders are gone, and then they get the Express loose, and then the Rock and Rolls say that they weren't hurt, but were obviously jumped and tied up when that happened. But the opener between Garcia and Briscoe was definitely the best match. That tag team match was very good at the end as well, but that opener with two crowd favorites in there really busted a good one out there. We'll then move on to Raw, the debut on Netflix. So a big show, obviously kind of a PLE level kind of show, but we'll start that off with we get a special video, kind of a cold open. They had posted it on Twitter earlier in the day, but it's Triple H talking about the stories of wrestling and the history. There's an artist kind of painting a giant picture on a canvas. And then he just talks about all the great memories that WWE has gone throughout the years. He talks about faces and heels. He shows clips from not only WWE but WCW, just a bunch of stuff, a bunch of memories. But they have this like tarp around the ring, and they're showing it on that. And then Triple H was in the ring when the curtains came up, and he asks the crowd to get louder and tells them to be louder than ever, and asks them if they are ready, and welcomes us to the Netflix era. We then get The Rock coming to the ring. He has a very long diatribe of an intro. He talks about how he used to watch wrestling as a kid, but now it's a lot easier to do so, especially here on Netflix. We get an official announcement. This is the largest arena gate in WWE history for about they've announced that a lot. So that's been like the fourth or fifth time since last year that they've announced that. Rock obviously thanks all the Netflix executives. He also thanks Cody Rhodes randomly, who's in the crowd. He tells him to tell Mama Rhodes that The Rock says hello. He puts over the tribal combat match, which will be the first match that we see tonight on Raw. And then he talks about what it means to be a chief in their family before saying it's time to start the show and to start Tribal Combat. So Tribal Combat was our first match, and Roman Reigns defeats Solo Sikoa to become the one and the only tribal chief in their family. When he hit him with a spear after a whole load of interference had happened, Cody comes out, KO comes out, the Usos come out, Fatu and Tama Tonga obviously come out. And then post-match, Heyman grabs the Ulafala and starts to put it on Roman's neck, but Rock comes back out and says he needs to do it himself. So he gives him the Ulafala instead. So Roman back on top of the bloodline officially. We then get John Cena. He's out for a chat to kind of start his farewell tour out. He hypes up how smart the fans are, and they know their audience just got a lot bigger with the Netflix, obviously being on Netflix. He thanks the fans and Monday Night Raw for letting him stand in the ring and jorts one more time. Cena is ready to start his farewell tour and lists off possible opponents from Cody Rhodes to CM Punk. He says the other question people have been asking him is if he'll become a 17-time world champion, but he's not seeing it. He says he's been on a 2,400 day plus losing streak. He hasn't won a single match. So he says world title's probably not in the cards going forward. He says he has a better chance of winning an Oscar, and well, that's not going to happen either. The only chance he has of getting a title shot is to win Money in the Bank or the Elimination Chamber, or maybe even the Royal Rumble. He then kind of thinks about it and he says, maybe I could do that. I've done it twice before. It would be a great way to thank the fans. And if you know him, nothing is impossible. The only time they say never is when they say never give up. So he announces that he's going to enter the Royal Rumble, and he says he's going to win it and go on to WrestleMania and fight for a championship. We then get a Logan Paul hype video, and then he's also shown in the crowd. I'm not going to go into every time they show somebody in the crowd. That's probably happened 4 times already that I haven't gone into, but there were a ton of celebrities there, a ton of executives, ton of they showed a hype video for him, so that's really the only reason I pointed this one out. But yeah, they showed a bunch of people. I mean, celebrities from all over and all kind of walks of life were there. So, but I only went into that one really because he is a superstar, and they had shown a video of him before that. We then get Rhea Ripley. She finally defeats Liv Morgan via pinfall, following the Riptide to become the new Women's World Champion. So she finally gets her belt back. Dominic tries to hug Rhea Ripley afterwards, but ends up getting low blowed. Ripley then goes up to the ramp, but the Undertaker randomly comes out, rides his motorcycle around the ring, and then they stand in the entranceway together and do the Undertaker pose with the arm in the sky. So pretty cool moment to have the Undertaker kind of be out there with her, but seemed definitely kind of strange and weird time placement, but I digress once again. Chad Gable and American Made tell Adam Pearce, or Chad Gable really just tells Adam Pearce that he wants the best luchador in the world for next week in a match. So obviously with Penta being teased to come in, it's pretty much probably a layup that that's going to be him, or it's going to be somebody else, and then Penta's going to come out afterwards and wreck shop. Hopefully it's Penta, and hopefully they give them time to kind of cook and give them the opportunity to show what they can do, because I think those two could make magic together for sure. We then get videos of The Rock leaving. He talks to various people. He talks to Triple H. He talks to Paul Heyman. He talks to Roman. Talks to Cody. And he obviously he's walking around with a bottle of his tequila. He's just chugging it along. And then he announces he will be on NXT tomorrow night. And then we'll just have to ignore him driving away after he has been drinking tequila. So we're just going to ignore that one for a bit. We then get Jey Uso. He defeats Drew McIntyre via pinfall. He avoided a Claymore and kind of turned it into a crucifix pin once they both hit the mat. We then get Gabriel Iglesias in the back. He is cut off by the New Day. They aren't happy that they aren't getting time on the show. They're told they're out of time, actually, by Kathy Kelly, and Iglesias ends up leaving with the Alpha Academy, who had come in as well. We then get Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman. They're happy with their win and ready for a celebration. Reigns says it's on for January 27th, and they go into a room, and the door that they had walked into has WWE 2K25 on it. So obviously somewhat announcing that a new game is in the works, but Reigns will be on the January 27th Raw that will come in a few weeks. So we then get probably the worst or most reviled segment of the night. Hulk Hogan comes out for a chat with Jimmy Hart. He promotes his beer. And obviously talks about Raw being on Netflix, but the fans pretty much eviscerated him with booze as he came out. So whether it was for political or other things that he has said and done in the past, he was not liked by the LA crowd tonight. And I heard somebody else say it on a pod, but like, I get he's a huge star, one of the hugest stars in the industry, and I'm never going to deny that. But he's almost to the point of like, he wasn't popular when anybody that's like, or not anybody, I won't say, because that covers a lot of people, but there's a lot of people out there that like weren't even alive when he was like, no, like, I mean, I guess I don't really know what I'm saying, but there's enough fans out there that weren't even alive when he was like super big. So I think he's starting to like lose his luster. Like there's a lot of older fans and people who are fans of the older stuff that still like him, but I think they're kind of running out of those people that have goodwill and like good thoughts towards him. So I think it's about time that he kind of gets used in like backstage segments or something to that effect for the rest of his career and stuff. He doesn't need to be out in the middle of a crowd, because they're probably going to boo him for one reason or another. But we'll go to our main event from there. CM Punk defeats Seth Rollins following back-to-back GTSs, and then as the show kind of starts to go fade to black, they're kind of staring each other down as they both lay kind of worn out from the match that they had just had. And it was very, very good. It was match of the night for sure. Tribal Combat was also very good, and a good end to that rivalry, and a good way to kind of finish that story a little bit. So, but Rollins and Punk definitely took the cake for the best match of the night. We then go to NXT. We have Corey Graves back on commentary. I don't know if that was permanent, if they were just trying to kind of hype this one up, because this was our New Year's Evil show. So we have a couple of big title matches, a couple of number one contender matches. So, but like I said, Corey's on commentary with Booker and Vic at this point. So we'll see if that's kind of a permanent thing, as they kind of changed up the announced teams, with McAfee and Cole being on Raw and Tessitore and Barrett being on SmackDown. But we open with Julia defeating Roxanne Perez via pinfall with a Northern Lights bomb to become the new NXT Women's Champion. So probably saw this one coming. I think they're probably going to try to build towards a Julia and Stephanie Vaquer match at Stand and Deliver eventually. But Julia was bound to win it here, or Vengeance Day, which is coming up, I believe, in early February. So they'll probably her and Roxanne will probably have a rematch there, if I had to guess. But yeah, Julia wins the title here, and not super shocking. Roxanne had a great reign, but I think it's time to go on to something new. We then get Eddie Thorpe. He's in the back, are kind of convalescing on the steps like he had been attacked. But Ava, obviously, based on previous times, doesn't believe that he was actually attacked this time. But it seems like he maybe was. We then get Javon Evans talking in a little segment. His jaw is wired shut, and he is out of action for a brief period of time. They don't really dive into exactly how long he's out, but he promises revenge when he comes back for him and Cedric on Ethan Page. We then get Stephanie Vaquer. She defeats Kalani Jordan, Cora Jade, and Lila Vice when she hits the STP on Kalani Jordan. This makes her the #1 contender for the Women's North American Championship. So her and Fallon Henley will face each other somewhere down the line. We then get Ava. She's talking to the Unholy Union. She puts them in a #1 contenders match for the women's tag team titles next week against the Meta Girls, I believe. Obafemi then comes in and says he isn't worried about Eddie Thorpe anymore, but apparently he is still in the match as of right now, based on not knowing enough about his injuries yet. We then get a video of OTM. They are ready to take the tag team titles and take that next step. They are the #1 contenders based on the fact they won that Battle Royal or the whatever gauntlet match that was a few weeks ago. But OTM are the #1 contenders. It was a fatal 4-way. Shotzi Blackheart, or I think she's just Shotzi now, but Shotzi, Gigi Dolan, and Tatum Paxley defeat Fatal Influence when Shotzi hit Welcome to the Ball Pit on Fallon Henley. So that seems to maybe give her an idea for that she might deserve a shot at a North American Women's Championship because she pinned the champion. So we may see something about that later. We then get Ava in her office with Ethan Page. She's yelling at him for injuring Javon Evans, of course. And then The Rock comes in. Rock says payback will be trouble. And while he is the final boss around here, Ava is the final boss. And then Ethan Page kind of shakes his hand and leaves. Rock then asks Ava for advice on what to say out there. And she says he will figure it out. And then we get our Heritage Cup sudden death match where Lexus King defeats Charlie Dempsey via pinfall, where Dempsey had kind of gone to jump over him, and King had accidentally headbutted him kind of low, and then he follows that with the coronation, and he officially becomes the new Heritage Cup champion. So I don't know if they gave it back to Charlie, but he came out with it. So I don't know if it was kind of vacant in that situation, but Lexus King is officially the new champion now. And as I talked about earlier, Shotzi comes in, talks about how she pinned Fallon, so she deserves a title shot. Obviously, we saw Stephanie win a title shot earlier, and then Ava says that Vaquer will have to defend it against Shotzi to see who gets the title shot next week. And then we get our main event match, because we actually have The Rock as our main event segment. But our main event match, Obafemi actually defeats Trick Williams and Eddie Thorpe when Trick ran into a chair that Eddie Thorpe was holding up. And Obafemi followed that with the fall from grace powerbomb, and Obafemi is the new NXT champion. So kind of shocking result for me. I figured this would be a way that Trick maybe could get away with not pinning Oba, and still walk away champion, and then maybe they would run it back eventually. But they went ahead and got the belt on Oba. So we'll see if Trick hangs around for kind of a stand and deliver match, or if they start to build somebody else new kind of towards that area, and Trick kind of fades into the end of the back and kind of goes up to the main roster eventually. And then we get The Rock to rep thing. Julia and Nova pose on the ramp to kind of usher in the new era that both of them are now the head champions. And then we get The Rock out to wrap things up. He does his little Chihu yell that he does from Moana. And he actually seems like a little bit off. He hits all of his major catchphrases, of course. He brings up his history with Cody Rhodes, but the fact that they were nice to each other last night. And at the end of the day, they should know their roles because he is the final boss. So enjoy the ride. Rock then shrugs off the clock, counting him down. He swears a little bit and talks about how he was going to come here and just wing a promo. Last night at the Intuit Dome, it was the sexy ticket, but the place to be is NXT, and that's the place that you want to go always. In 3 years, the people in the back could be headlining WrestleMania or be out of the business. What matters is how you react to them, and he says he loves the crowd and wraps the show up and says goodbye. Um, really weird way to end the show. I kind of wish they would finish with the match. I wish he had kind of done a promo and maybe like led to that or something, and talked about the guys in the match and kind of hyped it up. But Rock's gonna main event if he's there. But Julia versus Roxanne was the best match. The men's match was also good, but you know Julia and Roxanne have been feuding for a while, so that one had a little bit more oomph to it, I would say. But we'll move from there to Dynamite. We open with Will Ospreay defeating Buddy Matthews via pinfall, following a Styles Clash and a Hidden Blade. Post-match, Ospreay asks for some love for Buddy Matthews and Brody King, and saying they don't need a leader, obviously kind of talking about Malachi Black for some reason. Ospreay can see some matches in their future, and if Matthews ever needs a good man in his corner, then to let him know. So maybe petitioning to possibly be the new king of the Black Throne, the head of the House of Black. But yeah, he's seeming to offering his services to the former House of Black members, as it seems like Malachi's contract is up in the air. I've seen some rumors that he may be headed back to WWE fairly soon, but who honestly knows? Obviously, anything can happen in this day and age. We then get highlights from Wrestle Kingdom and Wrestle Dynasty from the previous weekend. A lot of AEW talent was involved in the shows, and I watched Wrestle Kingdom, and I've watched most of Wrestle Dynasty, but it seemed like two pretty solid shows overall. We'll then get Private Party out for a celebration, but the Hurt Syndicate interrupt, and they walk through the velvet ropes without much security interference. MVP then proposes a toast, but it's a toast to the Hurt Syndicate becoming the tag team champions by defeating Private Party eventually. We then get Bobby Lashley headed to the ring, and he defeats Mark Briscoe via submission with the Hurt Lock. Post-match, they continue to beat him down, but Private Party ends up making the save and kind of running them off. And then we have our Casino Gauntlet after that, and Powerhouse Hobbs wins that by hitting a big spine buster on Kyle O'Reilly to get a title shot next week on Maximum Carnage Dynamite against John Moxley. The following were the participants in the match. I think there were 11, if I remember correctly. Jay White, Hangman Page, Wheeler Yuta, Ricochet, Adam Cole, Daniel Garcia, Roddy Strong, Lance Archer, Jeff Jarrett, and obviously I said Powerhouse Hobbs pinned Kyle O'Reilly, so both of them are in it as well. Post-match, Hobbs says we're going to shoot and promises to make John Moxley his bitch next week. And he was obviously talking to Renee, and Renee didn't seem quite pleased by that use of words per se. We then get Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett was in the match, but he never particularly made it to the ring. He got attacked in the entranceway, and he never really actually made it into the ring. He doesn't seem sure if he still got it, and then MJF comes out and interrupts him. MJF actually introduces himself and explains why he wants the title back, but there are a bunch of people in the way. He says it's a regular Dr. Seuss book of challengers, and there is one person who can still go after the title. MJF lists off Jarrett's resume, which he had to look up because it's way too old for him. The reality is that Jarrett has signed a one-year deal, which is all wrestling thinks he has left to give. MJF thinks he can help Jarrett get the world title, and all he asks is for the first title shot. The offer is made, and Jarrett takes the mic. Jarrett says that people like MJF are called one-hit wonders around here. The fans start to chant one-hit wonder at him, and Jarrett thinks that might be a nice T-shirt. Jarrett has 1 year left, has a year left, and knows that he is going to have to work, but he'll be doing it alone. So he obviously is kind of saying he doesn't even need his group to make it happen. So we'll see. We then get Cope out for a chat. He talks about how John Moxley attacked Darby Allin and how Moxley doesn't think much of Cope himself. Cope talks about the injuries he has suffered in the ring, including winning a match with a broken freaking neck. Excuse me. So what can Moxley do to them that hasn't been done before? The Death Riders come out, but FTR actually jumped them from behind to even things up. Marina Shafir then comes in with the briefcase and allows Pac to drop Cope from behind. Moxley then chokes Cope out and loads up a plastic bag, but Powerhouse Hobbs, obviously the new number one contender, comes out and makes the save. We then get Mariah May. She wants she wants the women to fight to become the number one contender. Harley Cameron then storms in and asks for a match on Collision. She says they can even make it non-title, just some hot girl graps. And eventually the match is made with Cameron threatening to make her feel her wrath. So obviously another pretty good, funny segment from old Harley Cameron. We then get Chris Statlander. She defeats Willow Nightingale and Toni Storm when she hits Saturday Night Fever on Storm. And this earns her the number one spot in the women's Casino Gauntlet that will happen next week. And I believe they are going to have a that would get a number one contender match, and I think it's called Grand Slam Australia or something like that. So they're gonna have a big show in Australia coming up. Toni Storm is then interviewed in the back. She says she isn't surprised she didn't win because she's not ready to win a big match like that, and says it can't be Toni time all the time. We then close the show with Kenny Omega. He makes his big return. He gets applauded pretty loudly, of course. Omega talks about how he was diagnosed with diverticulitis a little over a year ago. They took 2 feet of his intestines out, and if he hadn't gone in when he did, he would be dead. Omega is immediately asking about when he would be able to get back in the ring. The doctors, who apparently called him Kenny Omega, despite that not being his real name, wasn't sure if he could even get back to a normal way of life, let alone wrestle ever again. Obviously, that didn't work for him. He came back to be this version of himself that you see before him today. He says he's not worried about money or power, but just being the best in the world. Don Callis then comes to interrupt, but Omega isn't having this and charges to the outside to beat up Callis. Don Callis family then come in and beat Omega down, and they hit him with a weapon in the abdomen, obviously his weak spot. But then Will Ospreay makes the save, and we get a pretty intense stare down between the two to end the show. But Ospreay and Buddy were definitely the best match on the show. Ospreay usually has one of the best matches of the week, and this week is no different, as him and Matthews went out there and had a pretty awesome banger. And the Casino Gauntlet was also very good, but I would give the tip of the hat to the opener. We'll then go to Impact. We open with Steve Macklin, Eric Young, and Jonathan Gresham defeating the System when Macklin hit the KIA on Johnny Dango Curtis. Myers and Edwards then attack with a chair afterwards. They end up wrapping the chair around Gresham's neck, and they run him into the ring post with it, so kind of taking him out. I read and heard somewhere that this may have been a way to ride him out, because I think maybe him and his wife Jordan Grace might be headed elsewhere in the near future. So, but Macklin and Young are able to grab chairs themselves, and then they end up running the System off. We then get a video recap showing Joe Hendry's journey to where he's come today, how he got the main event at Genesis. He talks about all the things of his career, showed some highlights from wrestling and all kinds of different organizations. So just really recapped his entire career and leading towards probably, or maybe his big moment that will happen at Genesis. And then we get we head out to the ring for our next match. Savannah Evans comes out, but before we learn who her opponent is, Zia Brookside comes out. She said she wasn't happy that Evans injured her at Turning Point. Brookside says that she wasn't cleared to wrestle, but there was another wrestler that Evans also injured who was ready to go, and it was Lei Ying Li. She makes a return, and she defeats Savannah Evans via pinfall with the Thunderstruck kick. We then get Jordan Grace. She calls out Tessa Blanchard to fight in the ring later on tonight. We then get Mike Santana. He competes in a gauntlet match against the Northern Armory. He is able to defeat Icarus and Williams separately before his match with Josh Alexander. Icarus and Williams both attack him, causing the ref to call for a DQ. And then after that match is over, Alexander hits the C4 spike and takes his headgear back, which Santana had taken previously. We then get the personal concierge in the backstage. He says he's going to have a must-see pre-launch championship celebration for Heather and Ash by Elegance next week as they eye to become the TNA Knockouts Tag Team Champions. We then get Rosemary. She cuts a promo backstage on Masha Slamovich. She said she could see the cracks forming in Slamovich's game and that she is scared. Raven randomly makes an appearance looking like shit, but he was with her. He questioned whether Rosemary was ready for a world title again. Rosemary then grabs him, and she had a blade, and she holds it to his neck, and then he suggests a Clockwork Orange House of Fun match, which would give Rosemary the edge at Genesis. So she's going to bring that challenge to Masha for the Knockouts Championship. We then get the Rascals. They defeat the Good Hands when Wentz hits a top rope Meteora on John Schuyler. We then get Steve Macklin and Eric Young. They were angry about being taken out after their match earlier. Young said that they would hand out their own brand of justice, but First Class walked in and interrupted. They make jokes, and Macklin wasn't impressed. Macklin took a shot at AJ Francis losing the world title match at Final Resolution, and if Francis says they had their eye on tag team gold, and if they had to run through Young and Macklin, so be it. So I think that match gets made for Genesis as well. We then get Moose. He put himself over as the greatest X Division champion ever. He said Ace Austin will find that out at Genesis. Moose then said he would be embarrassed. He was embarrassed at the design of the X Division Championship. We then get Andrew Everett coming out. He berates Moose for his disrespect. Moose says he doesn't know who he is, which at least that got a reaction because Andrew Everett got zero reaction when he came out. He told Everett to get out of his ring or get put down. Everett stood his ground, and he stuttered through the rest of his promo, but basically says he's not going anywhere. Moose took him down with a big boot, and then he told Everett he had earned an X Division title shot by standing up to him. But basically a squash. Moose absolutely destroys him, and he pins him following multiple power bombs, one on the hardest part of the ring. We then get Sami Callihan. He's backstage with Santino Marella. He wanted to be back in the tag title picture with his partner PCO. Marella suggested team names for them, such as Death Meat, which is a terrible but amazing name at the same time. But Callahan wasn't a fan of that name. He said that PCO, if they can beat the Hardys next week, they will be added to the tag team championship match at Genesis with the Rascals. We then get Jordan Grace. She said that Tessa Blanchard should be terrified that she has a microphone right now. Grace said if Blanchard wanted to reclaim the Knockouts division, then she would have to go through her. Blanchard ran through the crowd and they brawled in the ring. Security flooded the ring to separate both of them. Grace is able to break free and toss some of the security out of the ring, and then security eventually successfully backed them into a corner, and the segment kind of ended there. And then we get our main event where Joe Hendry and Rhino defeat the brothers Nemeth of Nick and Ryan when Hendry hit the standing ovation on Ryan. And then him and Rhino kind of celebrate after the match as Nick kind of looks concerned looking at his opponent that he has to come face him at Genesis. I would say the opening and main event match were probably the best matches. Impact hadn't particularly brought a good, a particularly great TV match as of late. It's been, all of it's good. None of it's bad per se, but nothing has really stood out for me in quite a while now. But I would say that first match was probably the best match of the night with the main event so closely behind. But we'll go from there to SmackDown, our second 3-hour SmackDown. This opening promo is a pretty long segment, so bear with me. But Paul Heyman, he's in the ring doing a promo that there's only one tribal chief in the WWE universe, and that is Roman Reigns. Heyman said that Reigns has authorized Heyman to share what Reigns' plans are to do next. He said that he would share this news with one man in particular, and that man deserved to hear it face to face. He then brings out Cody Rhodes. Heyman and Cody shook hands when he entered the ring. Heyman talked about how Cody has earned the respect of Reigns. Heyman said that he respects him and the fans love him. Heyman then said that Cody is a credit not just to SmackDown, but to the WWE entirely. Heyman then said because Cody is a great champion, Reigns has let Heyman come out to talk to Cody face to face. Heyman informed Cody that Reigns wants his title back. Heyman then says that is not a prediction, but a spoiler. And this is also a spoiler that he is going to declare for the Men's Royal Rumble this year. And he is going to win and face Cody Rhodes once again in the WrestleMania main event for the championship. Heyman then asked Cody what did he want to talk about, but before Cody could say anything, Kevin Owens appeared in the crowd. He's wearing a shirt that says Kevin is right. Owens complained that Cody went to Raw and shook hands with The Rock. Owens then complained about Cody shaking hands with Heyman. Owens then said that Cody should have let the bloodline rip Roman's Reigns to shreds, but now look what happened. Owens then said that Cody is hurting the entire company. Cody eventually leaves the ring, jumps the railing, and goes after Owens. They got a fight in the stairs around the fans. Cody then they started fighting around the concourse area. And then as that's happening, Paul Heyman's just kind of standing in the ring, and he turns around eventually, and Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga are there. Jimmy Uso then comes out to kind of save Heyman, and Heyman bails. And then the bloodline eventually beat him down until Cody is able to come back and kind of make the save and run him off and save Jimmy. We then get Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga in the back. They take out some security and they try to make them leave the arena. LA Knight eventually comes in and kind of pounces Jacob Fatu through the door to kind of shut him out of the arena. And then Nick Aldis was pretty pumped about that. And Knight says he has a U.S. title to go win. We then get Chelsea Green defending her women's U.S. championship successfully when she defeats Michin via pinfall when she rolled through a crossbody and ended up holding the tights with a roll-up. We then Michin grabs Green after the match before Green could leave the ring, and then Piper Niven is able to hit her in the back, and she hits a running senton splash on Michin before her and Green bail. There was a video shown from earlier in the day where Nick Aldis was talking to 4 tag teams who argued who deserved the tag team title shot against DIY. Aldis then set up 2 matches, Los Garza versus Pretty Deadly, and then Motor City Machine Guns versus A10 Down Under. And Aldis says obviously they'll face each other, and then whoever wins both matches will face each other next week to see who gets the title shot. Aldis warned Waller not to interrupt him again, while Waller said he didn't have to deal with this kind of disrespect on Raw from Adam Pearce, so maybe teasing a switch to the red brand to get away from all this. We then get the first match of that little mini tournament where Los Garzas defeats Pretty Deadly when they hit a spinning slam on Prince. I thought this was a pretty solid match. I don't know if it was one of the necessarily best matches of the week, but I think it kind of showcased what both teams can do really well. We then get LA Knight. He actually defeats Shinsuke Nakamura, but it's by DQ when the Bloodline gets revenge on Knight for the earlier attack. Cody Rhodes and Jimmy then show up to fight Fatu and Tama ringside. Cody and Jimmy then beat Fatu and Tama up enough to send them over the barricade and send them kind of go into the back. Cody Rhodes then cut a promo telling Nick Aldis not to send them home. He basically challenges him to a match later on, and Nick Aldis says he's got it, and the match will be the main event tonight. We then get a video package of Tiffany Stratton's triumph and cash-in and title win last week. We then get our second tag team match where Motor City Machine Guns defeat A-Town Down Under when they hit the Skull and Bones on Theory. We then get Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano backstage. They had been watching the match. Pretty Deadly walked up, and DIY said they thought, or telling DIY that they thought they were going to help them. Ciampa then said that they didn't want to scratch their backs. Gargano mentioned Pretty Deadly helping them last week, and Gargano claimed he's got them and he will eventually do something to help them. And then they eventually leave, and Apollo Crews walks in to tell Pretty Deadly, saying if they're dumb enough to believe DIY, then you deserve everything coming your way, and it's not the tag team championships. Crews then left, and Pretty Deadly sarcastically thanked him for the advice that he just gave them. We then get Nia Jax. She's in the locker room with Candice LeRae. Jax knows that Tiffany Stratton was going to the ring soon, and Jax wondered what Stratton will say, and she said she's going to go out there and congratulate her herself. Stratton then comes to the ring for an interview with Byron, who congratulated her. Never even asked a question, but Tiffany interrupts him and says, "It's Tiffany time." She says less than a year ago, she debuted on SmackDown. She became Miss Money in the Bank, and at 25, she's already beat all your favorites and has become champion. Saxton kind of mentions Jax bullying her over the last few months. She said she befriended Jax. She got Jax to trust her, and then she let Jax think that she was just a dumb blonde. She said she took Jax's WWE Women's Championship, and that was the plan all along. She told the fans to put some respect on her name and tell her what time it is, but obviously not. Jax then comes out and interrupts. She calls her an ungrateful little shit and says she will kill her. I thought that was a little strong, but Jax hasn't been known for holding back in the past either. So, but Jax said that Stratton would be nothing without her because she claimed she had made Stratton. She said that Stratton finally took advantage and said it took her long enough to do so. She mentioned that it's Tiffy time as she got in the ring. She told her that time was up, so now she could either give her the championship back or Jax will take it. Bayley then comes out in her gear and told Jax to shut up. She said if that was Stratton's plan all along, then you got her because she thought Stratton was stupid. She also calls Jax stupid for some reason. She said that Jax made Stratton, but put her under Jax's wings, and then she was able to outsmart Nia. She reminded Stratton that the reason that Jax was had the championship in the first place is that Stratton helped her win it at SummerSlam. She said it's only fitting that she takes the belt from Stratton also. Naomi and Bianca then come out with Naomi saying the only reason she didn't win the title last week was because of Stratton. And that's the reason she doesn't have two belts right now. So she deserves the shot. Jackson says nobody cares about Naomi and then headbutts both her and Bianca. And Bayley eventually fights Jax, but Jax is able to knock her down. And then the four women end up fighting until Tiffany Stratton hits the PME on top of all of them inside the ring. And then all this comes out, makes a fatal four-way, and whoever wins will be the number one contender. And then that match happens next, and Bayley defeats Naomi, Nia, and Bianca to become the number one contender when she hits the rose plant on Naomi. We then get Cody Rhodes backstage. He's approached by Jimmy Uso. Cody said as far as Roman Reigns is concerned, he knew he was coming for the title at some point, and then Cody kind of leaves. Carmelo Hayes then approaches and talks to Jimmy and threatens him. Mello says Mello don't miss, and Jimmy said with all the bricks he's been laying lately, he could build a house. And then Jimmy does the little yeet hand gesture and leaves, which kind of pisses Carmelo off. We then get Bayley. She's with Byron backstage. Her title match will be next week against Tiffany. Bayley said that she's grown up in this business and she's known people like Stratton her whole career, and she wrestled Stratton all of this past year. And Bayley says that Stratton has actually never beaten her one-on-one. So there is that. We then get Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga winning the main event, defeating Cody Rhodes and Jimmy Uso when Cody ran off to fight with Kevin Owens. And Jacob is able to hit the double jump moonsault on Jimmy. And then we get Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes. They continue to battle all around the arena. They go where all the technical area stuff is, where the fireworks and pyro section is and stuff like that. And Cody ends up battling on top. Cody and Owens ends up battling on top of some equipment cases, and Cody charges at him, and they end up both going through a couple of tables that were strategically placed there. And that kind of ends the show with them both kind of convalescing on the floor. But the women's fatal four-way on SmackDown, I would say, was the best match of the night overall. Another really good, promo and kind of storyline-driven show. A lot of long, solid promos, but more promo than match on this one. But I'd say that fatal four-way was a lot better than I was thinking it would be heading in. But as far as top five match ranking week for this week on TV, Punk Rollins would be number one. I thought it was the best match of the week. It had a real PLE feel, had a good rivalry going into it as well, but definitely best match of the week. Matthews and Ospreay would be number two. I would put Tribal Combat at number three, though it may have not been the greatest match. It had a ton of story and just the gaga around it added to it a good bit for me. So Garcia and Briscoe would be number four, and then Julia and Roxanne would be number five for me. So that would be the top five matches for me this week for you to definitely check out. Like I said, a lot of solid throughout this week. I feel like that's been kind of the way TV's been lately. Not a ton of great, but I would say Punk and Rollins was great. But Not a ton of great going on lately, but a lot of solid, a lot of good. But yeah, definitely check out those few matches. Check out the matches of the night that I picked out on each show for sure. And thank you for joining me as always, and I'll see you next week.